guys, welcome back to HRG Offroad, and today we have this 2023 Subaru Outback Wilderness Edition. This is getting our 2-inch lift kit today because, as you know, these things sit a little bit too low from the factory. Now this kit will also fit the non-wilderness Outbacks. The first thing I'm going to do is measure the height. So in the front we've got 32 1/4, and in the back we've got 32 3/8. Yeah, look at that. So now what we can do, we're going to take the bolts out and lower the subframe down 2 inches. These are the new bolts. We'll just put that in there to keep it from dropping too far. If you're a customer watching this, make sure you go mud bogging after you get the lift kit installed. Your installer will thank you. I think these might be ADF rock rails. But what we gotta do is remove these bolts here, and there's a little support bracket that is gonna get relocated to the bottom side of these rails. Whether you have these or not, it'll still work. And you don't have to drop these down. They can stay in place, and then your little support bracket will go on top instead of on the bottom. Super easy. It's barely an inconvenience. This has got to come off. This is a plastic, heavy-duty plastic skid plate, which we are working on an improvement for. 12 millimeter right there. It's a little plastic. That out. It's nice to know that a little thin piece of plastic is the only thing between you and gallons of highly flammable liquid. So what we're gonna do is pull this off from the rock rail, and then this is gonna go right there, and everything's gonna drop 2 inches. We can just leave that hanging right now and do the other side. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna very carefully lower the subframe. Now remember, we've got these 2 bolts in to keep it in alignment so that it doesn't move forward or back or twist around. That's key. But now at this point, we can lower it and we'll get spacers placed. Place the front ones in first and then the back ones. Look at that. Now we put this back with our spacer in there. Now see, since we put those ones in the back, kept everything in alignment, and now they just thread right in like it ain't nothing. We're not gonna tighten anything up until everything's in, so we still have a way to shift it if we need to. But there's the finished look. We're just using these ADF rock rails as our spacer. And if you don't have these, the kit will come with 2 M10 spacers. Same sort of thing in the back. We're gonna do the same drop, put these right here. And let's do the other side. The original bolts back in. We'll go back and retighten all this stuff before we finish up. Spacer in there. Put these back in. Fucking hell. Now we definitely need to go through and check all the bolts to make sure they're tight. There will be torque specs for all these bolts in the instruction book. So we're gonna slide it that way. I think it'll fit behind that, but this has gotta have a notch right there to right there. So the idea is that the cord will pass, or the wire will pass through that little slot right there. Now that you've got the subframe kit installed, it's time to move on to the rear lift spacers. There are two carpeted panels that cover the rear strut mounts. They just pull up and you can gain access to the nuts. Okay, taking those off, top of the strut right there. All right, so what we're gonna do, position the part so we can get a bolt in it. Once we get the bolt started, we can just pull it up with the bolt. It's a little bit tedious, I must say. That one lined up, drop the other bolt through. Let's stick that little guy back in there. There you go, little guy. I forgot to film installing this brake line bracket, but it's pretty self-explanatory, just bolt it in as you see here. This next part is a bit tricky. You have to line up the bolt hole in the control arm with the hole in the wheel hub. Now, I actually think this step is easier just using a floor jack because you can kind of maneuver it around a little bit because the jack has wheels. This jack stand does not have wheels, so it's much more difficult to position it correctly, but it can be done, as you can see. I'm just gonna use a screwdriver to sort of push it into place. There it goes. Now that we got the back all bolted together, just drop it down. We're gonna get going on the front. So what you're watching here is us installing the spacers on a Crosstrek, which luckily for us is the exact same procedure as it is on the Outback. All right, so as you can see, the top of these struts turn, and these spacers have to be mounted a certain way. And unfortunately, these three bolts are equal distance, so you could mount it three different ways. There's only one correct way to do this, and that is with the L facing the front. So if you're standing at the front of the car facing this way, you should read it upright like that. And I know this is confusing for a lot of people, so I have to say it in every video. L is for driver side, R is for passenger side in US models. So basically, you're gonna mount it like this, and if you mount it wrong, the camber and caster correction that's built into this spacer will also be wrong. So one thing you have to do with this brake line right here, or ABS line, is you have to rotate this mount right here so that this comes out on the bottom and this is on the top. Gives it enough slack. So all you have to do is just grab it by your hand and turn it. All right. Okay, so if you look here, this thing is ridiculously high right now. What has happened is that the wheels, when they droop, they go inward like so. And then when the bottom of the tire hits the ground, it's kind of held there by the traction, and it doesn't allow the suspension to move upward because it's caught on where the tire is just holding it. So that's why it looks really high. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna steer the wheels and you'll see it drop. Now as you can see, that's more reasonable. Same thing we gotta do in the back, but we gotta roll it back and forth to do back. The last thing we're gonna do is take a measurement. We are at 34.5, which is a little over 2 inches. And in the back, we are at about 35. So we got a little bit more in the back, but that's fine. You want it to be a little high in the back in case you want to carry a bunch of gear, or if you got rooftop tent, or you want to pull a trailer or whatever. So this may change ever so slightly after we get the alignment done, which is what we're gonna go do right now. All right, that pretty much wraps up this installation video, and I appreciate you guys watching the entire thing. And as you can see, it turned out absolutely gorgeous. Now, the customer that owns this car is going to keep these tires on, which I'll put the tire size on the screen. But if you have any questions about tire size or anything else regarding the Subaru Outback lift kit, you can call us, 844-HRG-LIFT, or find us online at HRGOffroad.com. This kit is for sale right now, and I would appreciate you guys checking it out, and I'll see you in the next video.